All right, we got Reagan here today just to talk a little bit about her story, her trying to conceive journey. We met, I believe, 2 times. One was in the fall. I'm sorry, in the spring, I think, of 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think May. So yeah, about May of 2024, and then one follow up a little bit after that. And Reagan's just going to share her story. She is now 25 weeks pregnant with a question mark baby because they're not going to find out the gender, which I love. And so I'm just going to hand it over here to Reagan to share a little bit about her experience with your fertility, your future.
Yeah, so my husband and I decided we wanted to have a baby probably 2022. Um so but we were like, let's get things ready. Let's get like us situated health-wise. So I did some testing, at home testing to check like egg count and hormone levels and things like that, and saw that like my FSH was a little high for like, it was in the normal range, but it was a little high for optimal. And then I also have two autoimmune issues. I have EOE, which is a gut related issue, and then Hashimoto's, which is a thyroid related issue. So I went and saw both my OB and my primary care doctor, and both were like, you're fine. Like, just go get pregnant. And I'm like, okay. So, and at the time I was doing like macro tracking also. So I was doing like high protein, low fat diet, exercising all the time. And then I had all these other like health related problems. So to hear this like stamp of approval when I'm trying, like 6 months before we wanted to start trying to conceive, they were like, yeah, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
No guidance whatsoever. Like really
No,
nothing. Wow.
no.
No.
So, yeah, so it was very frustrating. And so, yeah, we tried to conceive for like 9 months before, contacting you, because I thought that there was something more, especially with those two health related issues. And then my menstrual cycle was so short, and I was doing like temperature tracking and stuff, and the temperature wasn't spiking the way that I thought it should. And so I went and saw my OB again, and they were like, you're fine still. Like, we don't know what to tell you. If you're this concerned, we'll send you to a fertility specialist so they can talk to you about IVF. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't think we're there yet.
Wow.
So then I started working with you and started doing more like natural and dietary and environmental changes that have seemed to help quite a bit.
And how did it,
So,
I mean, how was it to actually have something to work on and have an idea about how those symptoms, even those symptoms you just shared with us, like short menstrual cycles, not great BBT shifts, showing a great luteal phase, and then actually having action steps to do with that? I mean, I imagine that it's quite different than, the help that you did not receive
right.
before.
Well, I remember going to the OB, and she was like, oh, how long's your menstrual cycle? And I was like, well, my period usually lasts about 2 days. And she goes, oh, you're so lucky. And I was like, well, I can't get pregnant, so I don't know how lucky I really am.
Wow.
So, um, it just, I felt like I knew that there were things that needed to be worked on. And I had a macro coach at the time, and I told her, based on the reading that I did, I've heard high protein, low fat isn't great for fertility. And she was like, yeah, that's true. And so all of these resources were basically telling me, like, sit down and shut up, and it'll happen for you when you're ready. And so it was very frustrating month after month being like, doing this testing. I know when I'm ovulating, just not working. I know something has to change, but I don't know what needs to change.
And it's very
That was big.
frustrating when you know you're ovulating. It's like, okay, if I ovulate, theoretically, I can get pregnant, right? So I think that's what a lot of practitioners feel as well in the conventional standard world. It's like, oh, yeah, you have a period, you're ovulating, try 12 months. If not, come back for IVF. But you instinctively knew, even just by a shorter period length. And yeah, I love that you connect. I mean, high protein, low fat may be good for some things, but for fertility, at your first appointment, we kind of put together that was likely lowering your estrogen, and you didn't
Right.
have enough estrogen on board to really have that 3 to 5 day long bleed, create that uterine lining that we need for implantation and successful continuation of not only getting pregnant, but staying pregnant.
Right. Yeah. And so that was one of the big shifts was I stopped doing the macro tracking. And I think part of that also reduced stress, right?
Mhm.
So I'm not like trying to hit a certain target every day, not trying to necessarily exercise to a certain extent every day. Um, and then also trying to get, better sleep, eating more whole ingredients. And it was relatively easy to do that, right? I used to eat skim, uh, like low fat Greek yogurt, and now I eat whole fat Greek yogurt. And instead of skim milk, I do 2% milk. And so adding in areas to have, fat, and then also adding in um, other like hormone supporters, like omega 3s. And then also for like my thyroid, I started eating Brazil nuts every day. And so different
Amazing.
things to just add in. And started drinking like water kefir every day to help with my gut health. So it's just all these little things. And we switched like all of our plastic Tupperware to glass, our
Wow.
plastic cutting boards to wood cutting boards. We don't use anything that has like the nonstick coating. We use stainless steel. And so it's just all those, I think those little changes over time really help.
I love that you say that, Reagan, because I think a lot of us in this space, it's like, okay, what's the one thing I need to do, right? Like, what's the one supplement, the one food I need to eat? And I wish I had that answer for everyone, but it's usually not one thing. It's collective, small things and small changes, like you're just expressing here, that really add up to the big change, right? And so I just love that you were willing to dive into that, and you and your husband were able to make those changes and really create that more optimized environment. And then I'm looking at our notes here. So yeah, we talked in the end of May of 2024. And then tell me a little bit about July 2024. So we talked again. And at that time, you had some things happen.
Yeah. So I don't think we were necessarily expecting to get pregnant in May, July time for or June timeframe. But we did. And it was a chemical pregnancy, so we lost that at a little over 5 weeks. That was hard, but it really showed talking with the OB, they were like, well, we could do different tests to make sure your fallopian tubes are open. And I was like, okay, I kept trying to pull them back towards hormone levels and other issues rather than doing these really invasive and kind of painful tests. And so that kind of proved to me like I didn't actually need the test, and that the changes that I was making having a positive impact.
Yeah. And of course, it's never easy to experience a loss, but that was your first
Mm-mm.
positive ever, right? Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
So there is, and again, I mean, not to say how anybody should feel in this moment, but oftentimes there is a little bit of hope when that happens. Like, okay, like you're saying, we can do this. We know that these changes are showing improvement, and looking at those BBT charts, maybe seeing some changes in some of those patterns. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then what was your mindset at that point? How did you then go about the next couple months?
Yeah. So I think for a while, I'm an engineer, and I've always been like, if I work really hard and really like put my nose to the grindstone, I can get this thing. I can achieve this whatever I want. The problem was you can't really do that with this. And so I think after receiving that first positive, I was like, okay, I need to take a step back and, tell myself this will happen when it will happen and not put so much pressure. Um, and so like I dropped down in hours at work, um, prioritize sleep and like eating healthy and trying to modify my diet and my environment too. Like limiting social media stuff and limiting like inputs that I get positive and negative from other people, trying to find my own and journaling too, trying to
Yeah.
find my own like center.
So that's
um
nervous system. I mean, hardcore right there, right? You hit nervous system, stress resiliency,
yeah.
decreasing the amount of input coming in, and really changing that hormone cascade from that root
Mhm.
cause.
Yeah. So a lot of, I think, things that I did, adding in like the Prove oil after. Um, yeah, I think I also started increasing nitric acid. So I was drinking pomegranate juice and beet juice. Beet juice is not my favorite, but adding those in to try to help with like uterine lining too.
Mm,
So then, yeah, after that first positive, um, about 3 months after that is when I got the second one.
incredible.
Um, yeah.
And so it reminds me there, when you're talking about adding these things in, and these are things that people might commonly come across on social media. They're like, oh, yeah, I heard of that. And okay, I've seen that. But you weren't just doing this randomly. You knew,
Mhm,
okay, well, our theory is that we need to support estrogen, follicular phase first, uterine lining first. Ultimately,
mhm,
that's going to impact the entire hormonal or menstrual cycle, especially with a chemical. We want that luteal phase to be better and better progesterone because we have a great half of the cycle, first half of the cycle. And so you are really kind of systematically but also knowing how to have a loose plan around where to target, not just doing
right.
things randomly, right? I mean, tell me a little bit about how that was for you instead of just maybe, yeah, doing all the things.
Well, I know so when we had decided we wanted to start trying for a baby, I got off birth control. So that was another thing, was I was on birth control for about 10 years. Um, and I started temperature tracking. And so could see, the different phases. And that's when back in 2022 is when I really learned like what a menstrual cycle is. um,
Right.
because they don't really talk about that kind of thing. They're like just once a month, you go through this and that's that. There you go. Um, and so learning like, okay, this phase, and then you ovulate, and then you have this phase, and what you can do to support those different phases really helped. Um, with like adding in, fat to support to support those hormones, and then knowing, okay, because of both temperature tracking and I did hormone testing with Anito for a little while, I could see, okay, where was my progesterone levels in the second half of my cycle, and where should they be? And so being able to use, supplements to better that kind of gave me a little more power and control,
Nice.
I guess, um, over the cycle.
I love that. I love that. And thanks for sharing it. And it's always mind blowing to me that as successful adult women, we don't even know about our own bodies. Like we don't even know about our menstrual cycles. Cause like many women our age, right? Like your story as well, just been on birth control for a decade plus. So it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, we don't even understand how to track our cycles, what that means, and how that can bring guidance to then what we can do to support our own hormones.
Yeah, I had a friend because I was telling her, "Yeah, you usually ovulate around 2 weeks after your period." And she goes, "I had no idea." I'm like, "Well, that's just the very basics of," and that's not even necessarily true for everybody. Like
Right,
this
unless you're tracking.
Yeah, yeah. This cycle, the cycle that I got pregnant, I actually ovulated around day 19. which is
Okay.
about 5 days after the traditional norm standard.
And so if you
So,
had just timed your fertile window against the standard textbook 14-day ovulation, you likely would have missed it. You wouldn't even
right.
get captured that.
Right, and that's what I think is so nice about the temperature tracking too, um, is being able to see because the first month after, my chemical pregnancy, they we saw little spikes up in temperature, like it was trying to ovulate, and it wasn't quite getting there, which I thought was really interesting. But I understand that it takes some time after something like that for your body to readjust. But without knowing, you just wouldn't know that maybe during that cycle, that first cycle after my chemical pregnancy, I didn't even ovulate. That's
Right.
very possible. Um, and so understanding that and watching through that month, you're able to go, okay, self-reflection, this is probably not going to happen this month.
Right.
um, and be able to prepare for, the following months and what's going to happen.
I love that. Yeah, and not just take a pregnancy test on the day that you normally take a test on, because why go through that experience when it wasn't even going to happen anyway.
Right, right,
Yeah, that's what I think. Temp tracking, I know for myself included, I mean, I've been doing this for over a decade now, gave me such more confidence. And I use the word control, but I also hesitate to use the word control because it's not an over control. It's not like, oh, I want to
right,
learn what my body's doing so I can control it. It's understanding and then using that information really
right,
powerfully. Yeah.
right. And it's like, how can you support? I mean, this is in any aspect of life. How can you support this activity if you don't understand it? And so it's the same thing with fertility. There are plenty of things like I've seen online, take this gummy and it'll help your hormones. And it's like, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense. You don't know what one person's estrogen dominance is somebody who has a lack of estrogen. And you can't say this will like clean any person up. That doesn't make any sense. And so if you don't understand your own hormones or your own cycle, how can you know, help it? How can you support it in the ways it needs?
I love it. I love that you are seeing through that and did see through that and really just were able to bring a customized approach to your journey. It's just night and day, night and day. So, anything else about your journey that you just think would be helpful, or that was a good learning point for you that you'd like to share?
Um, One of the big things is, trying to be an advocate. It can be for yourself. It can be really challenging. I know I went and saw my OB and she twice, and both times she's like, "Oh, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine." I actually went to the same uh, OB, but a different doctor within that facility, and I expressed my concerns to her, and she was like, "Okay, let's get you an ultrasound to check your lining. Let's get all these other tests. I'm going to get you a referral to an endocrinologist because an endocrinologist would not see me without a referral, and I was struggling getting somebody to give me a referral. And so, really great. Ended up not getting that ultrasound because I got pregnant that month instead. But I think the big thing is trying to be an advocate and not being afraid of offending people to
Mhm.
advocate for your own health. Um, because it's your body, it's your health, it's like your like that to me is like the most important part. Like I
Yeah.
only get one of these. My one time experience. I'm not trying to offend you, but you may or may not be the person that is going to help me. And so trying to find somebody who will help you. Um, yeah.
So powerful. And just like you said, I mean, even the same practice, but a different practitioner. They're all every practitioner is going to be different. And so
Right.
even if you get turned down a couple of times by one, request an appointment with another one. See what they're going to say. See what they can bring to the equation, right? So don't just let one practitioner stop you from getting answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. I know a lot of people will benefit from hearing that because it is tough to speak up for ourselves, especially women in a medical setting. It's kind of a deep rooted, I think, insecurity or fear. And so I don't think that
Right.
can be said enough. So thank you. Thank you for bringing
Yeah.
that up and talking about your experience with it. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Reagan. I just am so happy for you both and just love hearing about a recount of your journey and the steps that you took to get answers when you weren't getting those to begin
Yes.
with.
Yeah, and thank you for all the help and advice. It was great and very,
That's what
very useful. So,
Amazing. I mean, we just love what we do, and this is why we do it, just for families like yours. And the one thing I always like to say it in closing too is all of that work that you have done now in your home, your environment, you have just set your child up for such better health in the future, right? I mean, this is your fertility,
right.
your future. This is why we're called this because yes, it's about getting pregnant and staying pregnant, but now you are actually influencing the your baby's best
Hmm.
health well into their adulthood just from the environmental changes that you chose to make and dedicated your energy to. It's just
Right.
really such a full circle picture. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. We're
So,
excited.
way to go. So proud of you guys and congratulations.
Thank you.